This is Superman. Welcome to Godfall 101.
Welcome to Godfall 101. We are less than 10 days away from the launch of Godfall on PlayStation 5 and PC, and it's been a really interesting lead up to launch to say the least. The marketing of Godfall appears to be in the hands of Gearbox, Sony, and AMD, with Counterplay Games not saying much at all, only when they can. Keith Lee and Richard Hain have both had several interviews with PlayStation Magazine, interviews with IGN, Eric's, Vive has put out several lore videos. So when I lay it out like that, it sounds like there has been a lot of communication. I mean, it sounds like a lot, right? But then why doesn't it feel like a lot? More recently, the Japan PlayStation 5 event has given us the deepest look into the actual gameplay. Being able to watch players engage with the game without cut after cut was rather refreshing, but it still lacks showing off those deep systems we're all wondering about. It always seems like there's one other thing we're wondering about, right? I'm definitely guilty of this. IGN did give us a better look at gear and the skill tree, which I think helped me better wrap my head around the possibilities of future builds with the different Valorplates and the potential depth of the endgame. The two lore videos from Vive has given us a better understanding of the lore leading up to where we take over as players in Godfall. I think the story people are satisfied with what they received. I mean, I think so. I haven't really heard much one way or another from players if they're even excited about the lore of the game. We did recently learn the names of all of the Archons. Mobius, Bulwark, and Illumina were the last three names that we were still waiting for. The name Sirius apparently was changed from the time Keith mentioned it in an IGN interview. Either it was changed or it's the name of a different character that we'll see later on in the future of the game. I know this sounds like I'm complaining. With the small little reveals of weapons trickling out every handful of days on YouTube, we have had a steady stream of content leading up to the hype. But man, it sure doesn't feel like it to me. Alright, I think I'll do a lore wrap-up video when all of the lore videos are out and I can go over all of them together in depth. I mean, the game will be out in less than 10 days, so it's going to be happening soon. And we're also supposed to learn about endgame Dreamstones pretty soon as well, so I think we have some stuff planned for the coming weeks. Alright, so let's talk about those PC specs that released today. Surprised it took them so long to release them. So we'll talk about the PC specs and we'll talk about the AMD Partner Showcase. So here are the specs for Godfall. So the minimum specs require Windows 10. Processor required for minimum specs is the AMD Ryzen 5 1600 or the Intel Core i5 6600. Memory, they require 12 gigabytes of RAM. And for the graphics card, you will either want to have an AMD Radeon RX 580, just 8 gigabytes, or an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1060, which is 6 gigabytes. Alright, those are the minimum specs. The recommended specs, the operating system of Windows 10, of course. The processor, they want you to have an AMD Ryzen 5 3600 or an Intel Core i7 8700. 16 gigabytes of RAM. And for the GPU, an AMD Radeon RX 5700 XT, which is 8 gigabytes, or an NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1080 Ti, which is 11 gigabytes, which is the workhorse for the last 4 years or so. Alright, so the community manager jumped onto Reddit to clarify a little about the requirements. This is from Thanatos Noah, community manager of Counterplay Games. Quote, just for some quick clarification, the recommended specs are meant for high settings at 1080p 60 FPS. End quote. Now, full disclosure, a lot of this tech stuff goes way over my head, especially on the AMD side. Intel and NVIDIA I'm a little bit more knowledgeable on. So when community manager Thanatos Noah mentions that the high setting recommends a 1080 Ti to run 1080p at 60, my eyebrows travel to the top of my head. I'm not a developer or a computer engineer, but recommended specs for Cyberpunk 2077 are an i7 4790 and a GTX 1060, and that's shooting for 1080p. Assassin's Creed Valhalla is also the same requirements at 1080p 30. Now, I'm not saying that the Godfall specs are wrong, I have no idea. Until Digital Foundry comes out with a video explaining exactly what is going on and how to get the best performance out of the game. I suggest again not pre-ordering the game and waiting for reviews and benchmarks. I suspect the requirements are on the high end, but that's just my gut. Also, Assassin's Creed and Cyberpunk are being developed across multiple different platforms. So, it's hard to say one way or another just based on comparing, apples to oranges of these games. But it does sound really high to me. The AMD showcase video does mention DXR 1.1 ray tracing through the Microsoft DXR API. On the website, there's a comparison slider that you can slide between ray tracing on and ray tracing off, and you can see the difference there. Now, is there a huge difference? I don't think there's a huge difference. There is a difference, yes, but is it going to be worth a performance hit? I guess it's one of those things where we just have to wait and see again because we don't have great comparison videos on it. And really quick, and I'll keep this short, in the partner showcase video, I again noticed some things that have been bugging me for a while now, and each time I noticed them from older videos, I just assumed it was because it was from an unoptimized build and they were going to keep iterating on it, and this was just something that they were showing for now. And I know these things are very nitpicky. I don't think they're on the level of, water puddle changing sizes nitpicky, but I really want to get your thoughts on these small things. It's really odd to me that in a video like this, there's pop-in happening on the screen. We have seen larger areas in the game, and I haven't noticed any type of pop-in on this level. This is very close to where the camera is flying through the space. There's no characters on screen either, so I don't know exactly why it's happening right here. If this is, again, I use the excuse of this just could be old, or they were still tweaking things, or they were just, checking out the environment and flying through it, and this is just something that they missed and that they fixed by now, but it is just kind of weird that, you have pop-in while you're flying up these stairs. So this next one is something that I've talked about in other videos. So none of the flora moves in the game. Well, that isn't true. You can see some slight sway in the branches of trees at times, but if you see this banner whipping in the wind to a point where the banner is almost straight out and the vegetation next to it is not reacting at all, it is a small detail, but it kind of takes me out of the world a bit. Also, can we stop and appreciate all the particle effects in this battle? Oh yeah, particle effects, 2020. And just quickly looking at this water is flat. It's flat water coming out of the wall here. Now, I do want to make sure that I mention this. I know that Counterplay Games is a small team. Some things will get priority over others. Would I prefer if the foliage moved with the wind? Yes. Would I prefer that the water looked a little bit more realistic? Yes, I would. But would I prefer that stuff over solid gameplay and fun mechanics? Absolutely not. Counterplay is in a weird position where they're a small indie team and they're being asked to put out a AAA launch title for the next generation for Sony. That's no small task. In fact, it has to be extremely difficult. We have seen how many games have been delayed for one reason or another, but this team, with the new IP, is ushering in the next generation, and all eyes will be on Counterplay in less than 10 days, and that has to be a very scary feeling for a developer. I am excited to dive into the world of Hyperion. I hope my game review will help some of you make the decision to buy or not buy a little easier. So what are your thoughts on the PC requirements? Tell me in the comments below. Do you have the power to run the game, you think? Again, thank you for watching these videos always. Please like and subscribe if you found them useful at all. And please remember to be kind to each other.